Welcome to Le Grande Bouffe,
The Big Feast.
with myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. We are here, as always, to look at international culture and politics through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer every week. This week's episode is very different from the episodes that we've done in the past in that we have a third co-host here with us today, Mr. Adam Schartoff of Filmwax Radio.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for being here.
I'm your first guest?
Thank you.
That's right.
Wow. I'm like the first official third wheel.
That's right.
Is Jill Stein over here?
So,
Pleasure to be here.
very good to have you, and I think that our listeners would be curious to hear a little bit about Filmwax Radio.
It's a podcast, and
Ooh, I love those.
I got it at the podcast store. I was on a shopping spree. It's an interview based show, and I just have on as I put it, anyone with a stake in the game, generally in the independent film world. But
And you have interviewed many heavy hitters.
There's
Have
been a
you
few.
not?
There's been a few.
Come on, you can name drop with us.
Bertolucci.
That's pretty big.
That was a Skype one, but I did. It was incredible. I was realizing I'm talking to Bertolucci, and I'm trying to kibitz a little.
Yep.
And it's not easy when you're Skyping and with an Italian man who's now I guess in his 70s, and he was an interesting guy, very very nice.
His English is good, right?
It is good, but
Yeah.
it's still it's very good. And then he's starting to talk about Brando, and it's like, you got my attention. And then of course I know you guys did a recent episode on one of Brian De Palma films, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he was on too, and that was amazing. And then scores of people. I mean, Michel Gondry,
Amazing.
and Wong Kar-wai,
And Dick Cavett.
Dick Cavett. That was an incredible experience. I'm
seen
here
him
with my
making the
hero.
rounds.
What?
I've seen him making the rounds on podcasts. Dick Cavett.
Yeah. He is a faucet. You just turn on, and then it just runs, and it's like perfect temperature. But he's great because he'll just talk on great stories.
Yeah.
Groucho, of course, that's all he talks about is Groucho.
Amazing. Yeah, William Friedkin's another one like that.
Yeah.
You just
Did you interview him?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of interviewing Friedkin on a yacht in Cannes. I was 20 minutes alone in the belly of the yacht with William Friedkin for,
Oh my God!
for Bug.
Are you kidding me?
It was so much fun.
He did my show too, but it was, one of his latter day films, and which
Right.
more was called something Joe.
Killer Joe.
Killer Joe. Perfectly decent enough movie.
Yeah.
But he went off on a tear because there was one of these. What was that? The new. I'm going off. I apologize, but it was he started going on about evil. Which plays a part in a lot of his films. So that
Sure.
was a good. Anyway, so
Fun.
just amazing to have that you talk to these people. It's fantastic.
So,
Heroes.
So if people want to look up your podcast, where do they go?
Well, start with filmwaxradio.com, and there's a link at the top which is says archives. Some of the new episodes are up there, but it's for the entire archive. And you, of course, best of all, go to iTunes or Stitcher and subscribe, because that's the best thing of all, as you should do for Le Grande Bouffe. I myself am a subscriber of that podcast.
Hallelujah.
We're happy to have you. Rate and subscribe all of these too, you guys, because it helps.
Maybe we can do a package deal, like they get a discount if they subscribe to both of our podcasts.
Yeah, let's make them both free.
Freer.
If you get both, they're both
Even
free.
more free.
What a great idea.
I love it.
I love it. It's perfect. Perfect.
But thank you for letting me plug that.
Absolutely. That's a big part of having you here today. And, of course, another part of having you here is that we have a beer to drink. But before I say anything about what this beer is, I know that Adam expressed a certain concern about a certain genre of beer that we seem to favor on this program. And so I chose the beer today specifically for us, just to see what kind of, if you like it, how you like it. If you don't like it, whatever. So before we identify the beer, let's all have a little toast. Cheers.
Cheers.
To free podcasts.
From the podcast store.
Yummy.
You like it?
I do like that very much.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Of course, it's very cold, and on this hot day, I think just about anything that's that cold is going to be good. But I will tell you that it is an IPA.
I know it is.
But it's a double IPA. It's the Double Jack from Firestone Walker, and because this particular beer has such a strong malt back to it, it really balances the hops, so you don't get that astringent, hoppy flavor that a lot of people don't like.
But you do. You do.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, were you calling us out for the IPAs?
Well, no. I mean, I just, first of all, I'm not an IPA. I'm here with the two IPA drinkers, but I've not been a big IPA guy. When it comes to beer, there's a word for it which I shouldn't use on here. But
use it now.
It begins with a P.
Okay.
But I when it comes to beer, so I'm a light.
I'm sure we've used that word.
I'm a lightweight. Let's put it that way. So what doesn't mean, not in terms of the alcohol, but and by the way, what is the alcohol content, Cole or Mike?
It's a double IPA, right? So
what does that mean?
It's a little hefty. It's probably about 8.5. The Firestone Walker Double Jack Double IPA. Sorry, it's 9.5.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, keep it flowing. But so I generally drink, like wimp out. I drink pilsners. I'm sorry, I'm using popping. But I should find lager occasionally, things like that. But this is very delicious.
Good. I'm glad that you like it. It's
Firestone.
Good starting.
So that's our first piece of housekeeping. Second, we're like 10 minutes into this. What movie did we watch, you guys?
Well, we think it's only right that the guest should choose the film. So, Adam,
I chose Francis Ford Coppola's 1974, brilliant film, The Conversation.
Really, really powerful, very European sensibility to this movie. And to me, it's a great combination of a psychological thriller and a character study, and also a political satire.
Satire?
Yeah.
You think you felt it's a satire?
Yeah, I think that there's some really strong satirical thematic elements that have a lot of bearing on where we are today with surveillance.
For sure. Yeah, as I was thinking about, Brian De Palma's the name's already come up. And how he was also very, very, I'd say, caught up with the subject matter and the theme of surveillance, but also of just in general voyeurism,
Yeah.
And maybe this generation coming up at that particular time, they, coming up as college age while Nixon was in the White House. Vietnam, all these things happening, and it's not surprising that a number of these guys, I guess, including Coppola, with this particular film, were making movies about that dealt heavily in paranoia. Right,
and this film, obviously, coming out in 1974, obviously plays on the paranoia that was going on with Watergate, and to me, this film is very informed by Antonioni's Blowout, and also by Bertolucci's The Conformist. I think that it's very clear to me that Coppola referenced those films in making this one, and I think he spent a couple of years putting this movie together. It was really his debut, his big debut.
It was really strangely prescient to Watergate. I was looking at the chronology of that, and the break-in happened a couple weeks after filming was completed, and then when it came out in 74, it was like perfectly timed. I'm pretty sure it did not do extremely well in the box office, but I think was perceived as making direct reference to it, when in fact it was being written back in 67, so it was only thematically linked to that, but it really spoke of the times.
So yeah, it reminds me a little bit that way, having recently we also had recently the 40th anniversary of Network, Sidney Lumet's film, and that was also of a film that was associated with an event that took place. There was a suicide at this local anchor woman or TV reporter who shot herself on the air, and they then said that they thought that Paddy Chayefsky based his screenplay on that incident, at least in part. Truth was, he had already written it, and it was a coincidence. So here, too, often these two things are often equated, right? And you're dispelling that, right? With your prudent research.
Yeah, I typed in conversation 1974 essays and found that out pretty quickly. The other thing that's crazy to me about this movie is in 73, right, is Godfather 1. In 74 is A Conversation. And I think in 74 again is Godfather 2. Am I getting those right? It's definitely sandwiched straight in a row.
Totally.
It's incredible.
Totally true.
Well, this is certainly, I mean, Gene Hackman, known for never giving a dull performance, but this is certainly one of his finest, and it's such a fascinating character study because of all of the detail that Hackman goes into in the character that he's built. It kind of gives me the chills just even talking about it, because there's a strong identity for this generation of middle-aged guy. What is he, 44 in the film?
He's 40. He just turned 42.
42 or 44. There's the bit on the napkin where the landlord knows how old he is.
The character. Not Gene Hackman.
Yeah,
Harry Cole.
The character.
Harry Cole.
Yeah, Cole. I was like, Hackman can't be 42 in 74. That would make him 300 now.
Well, he is about 300 actually. He's getting up there. That guy.
Yeah. So he is of this generation of American male who. He's a self-determined spook, for one thing. That's what he does. For a living, He's this independent surveillance guy. But he clearly comes out of that Korean War mentality, and he is one cold customer.
He is, and but he has a reputation among the industry, which is inside the industry, within the industry, as like
the surveillance industry, which is now owned and operated by the government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the story, the conversation, he's considered the guy,
right?
Most respected, can pull off, a surveillance feat without, and then it's all these other guys are trying to figure out, how did you pull that off? It becomes these tales about, creating this sort of legend around Harry Cole.
And as insular as he is,
which is a wonderful way of
he still can't help but brag and invite his rival, his West Coast rival over, or his East Coast rival, as it were. The film is set in San Francisco, and I think it's important to also mention that it was shot by two different cinematographers. Mm-hmm. The beginning of the film is Haskell Wexler filmed it, and it's what's the name of that square in San Francisco? It's right
Union Square,
right in front of the St. Francis Hotel,
right,
where Bobby Kennedy was shot.
Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, and you can, since you brought it up, San Francisco really is like a character. I mean, I know that's a cliche, but it's such a great, especially in that opening sequence. It's just. It's an amazing opening sequence, one of the best I've ever seen.
It's fantastic. It's so gorgeously shot, and it puts you in the atmosphere of these characters. And of course, we're watching a young couple played by Cindy Williams of Laverne and Shirley fame.
Yes, and Frederick Forrest, who play obviously a couple that are romantically involved. We're just picking up pieces of evidence by observing them, much like Harry Cole and his two assistants, one played by the great, short-lived John Cazale.
Amazing actor. He's so great in this.
Yeah, we got to talk about him.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Nobody drinks a cup of coffee like John Cazale. He's got the cup in his hand, and he's that guy can work a prop.
So we're in a way seeing Harry sort of the way he works, like the couple's walking around. How do you get the conversation, which is what the title of the film refers to, is this couple's conversation. We're hearing pieces of it as they walk around. We're hearing what the surveyors hear, right? They're recording, they're walking, they're following. One guy's up in a window right nearby, using a shotgun type of mic or something. I mean, correct me if I'm...
Well, it's very like sniper rifle-esque, and something about people walking in this square. And I didn't know that bit about Bobby being shot right near there.
That's interesting.
But it really, especially when the theme develops of people maybe winding up dead because of work that he does. The fact that they're looking, he even talks about like they took the crosshairs from a rifle and that they're aiming it at the mouth.
Interesting. I never thought of that.
And you're hearing all this background noise, and they know they're being surveilled. They're walking.
Do they?
It seems like it. Because
they're suspicious.
Because they're clearly
worried
suspicious.
about being. Yeah, they're worried about.
And they know the guy's been following them.
They do?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Cindy Williams' character is, comments on it, and so it seems like they're disguising their conversation, and there's music, and she's humming along with the song. What is it? Robin?
Robin.
Keeps hopping along.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. I don't remember. I'm not sure the exact title.
I hate that they play that song a million times.
I know, but it's haunting after a while.
Well, and it has that same repetitive hypnotic narrative thing that just fascinates you as an audience member, and it reminds me of Blow Up, of Antonioni's Blow Up, and then De Palma's Blowout. All of these movies.
I know that's one of your favorites too.
They share these.
Yeah, well, Blowout was a reference to Blow Up, so it's perfectly normal that those two titles are in a way related. I mean, not just because they are similar, but also because one was influenced by another.
And Harry Cole is an obsessive man. He has a very obsessive personality.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that really makes the story work, there's a few things that make his character so intriguing. One is that he's an amateur saxophonist. His hobby is playing saxophone, and so they show him Coppola shows him in his living room, his very sparsely appointed San Francisco living room, playing along with his
jazz records.
Saxophone to jazz records.
Yeah, and he's sitting in his boxers or something, right? Isn't he?
Yeah.
And his little sock garters or something. I don't remember exactly.
Like yeah.
But yeah.
And then his romantic life. He actually, the way Coppola gets into Harry Cole's relationships with women and how he communicates with women is so telling about his personality, and to me, those are the scenes that really tell us what we need to know about this very guarded individual.
So I like to read the Ebert reviews on all these movies for a variety of reasons, but with this one, what Roger Ebert kept bringing up for like the first 3 paragraphs is this guy's kind of terrible at his job, which I think is not really fair. But he points out that the landlord somehow has broken into his apartment, left him a gift.
Even though it's triple locked.
Even though it's triple
on the
locked.
Inside.
Everyone has his phone number. His girlfriend is like...
He doesn't have a phone.
He doesn't have a phone, and they know his phone number. His girlfriend tells him, how come sometimes you just sit on the stairs and, like, watch me? And so one way to read it is that this is a just mixed-up character that's both very good and very bad at his job. But I think what's happening is he's been unraveling in that these are new problems in his life stemming from stuff he's dealing with in his past. But I'd like to know what you guys think.
It's very, I think that's a good observation, because I think he's excellent at his job historically, but like you just said, I think there's a crack in the veneer, something which is referred to in that there's something happened with somebody else, somebody got hurt. And when the couple that we referenced before, Cindy Williams, who, by the way, was also in, she was, of course, in, what was it, George Lucas's film? American Graffiti, and also in the first nudie musical.
I didn't know that.
Where she's, that's so she's,
and as long as we're name dropping, Terry Garr is
Terry
in
Garr's
the
the
film.
girlfriend. Right.
She's the girl. She's Harry's girlfriend. She's terrific.
Yeah.
And a very, very young Harrison Ford.
Right. And Terry's
adorable.
She's adorable. Terry Garr is so young. Doesn't she have like curly hair and like, it's interesting. Yeah, this cast, we'll talk about the cast. Maybe I'll let you guys drive this, obviously, but the cast is it's just amazing.
It really is.
It's
And
one of the best casts
even Robert Duvall, who has such a key performance, even though his role is just a couple of scenes.
Well, he's not even credited.
Wow.
Did you know that? He wasn't credited.
What does that mean? Does that mean they're not doing it for scale? Like, is that
I don't know what it means in that regard. Yeah. I don't know. In terms of pay, I don't know, but it's not, his name is not in the it may be in the end credits, but that would mean he was credited. So I don't think his name is in the credits. I could be wrong. But I know that it's called an uncredited.
And of course, we're talking about a San Francisco, which at this time when this film was made, San Francisco was going to be the next Hollywood.
Because of these guys.
And you had George Lucas and Robert Duvall had done THX 1138 right around the same time as this, so he was a pet favorite actor of Lucas and Coppola, and of course he plays heavily into The Godfather.
I heard about that.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful?
Well, and also rounding out the cast, then Alan Garfield, who plays. You were talking about his East Coast competition. Plays William Moran, who is a blowhard, a really obnoxious guy, but almost as good as Harry Cole, but not quite.
Not quite,
Definitely,
and he knows it.
Yeah, he knows it, and
he's like a bunch of rats that got into a sports jacket. That guy.
Yeah, he often played. It's his look, but he often played unseemly types in many movies. He was a great character actor.
Yeah, it's a very and the production design I think adds a lot to what's going on. The scene that we're referencing is in Harry's office, where it's set in a big warehouse, and part of it's fenced off for the office space where he keeps all of his fancy recording gear and stuff, and that's where he invites them over and plot spoilers ahead. His rival is up to some dirty tricks even during.
It's a good way to put it.
Even during the party.
Right, the party. Well, there was a convention. Just backtrack a little bit, right?
Yeah.
They're coming from a surveillance convention, which is
it's the dorkiest thing.
Well, yeah, but and a nice little bit is when Harry's humiliated because Moran puts a pen, like a free, little piece of what do you call it, swag or whatever, and so he puts a business pen in Harry's pocket. Meanwhile, it's a recording device, and Harry didn't pick up on that. So it's, we're seeing Harry definitely get pushed off of his, a balance a little bit by all these events that are occurring. But, one thing I wanted to mention in that opening, going back to the opening sequence when these two lovers are walking around Union Square, right? And that is, there's a line that comes up, which is, which, of course, Harry, misinterprets, which is the...
He'd kill us.
If he got the chance.
No, he didn't say he'd kill us, did he?
What is it?
I think he say... Did he say... I don't think he said kill.
Well, I believe... my understanding is that the line changes.
Oh, you're right. I apologize. He'd kill us if he had the chance.
Yeah, the emphasis switched.
Yeah. Oh, is there... or...
That's my understanding, is that the first time you hear it, you hear... He'd kill us if he got the chance, and then I believe at the end, the emphasis, like they re-recorded.
Oh, it's the way maybe it's the way that Harry hears it.
He'd kill us,
yeah,
if he got the chance.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like I don't even want to. Do you give away all the?
No, but I mean, clearly we're looking at a MacGuffin,
right
here.
It's the best MacGuffin. Right?
It's
terrific.
Yeah, because it keeps ringing in your ear after, because you've been hearing it, and you've been so focused on what it means. And the film has some there's a great dream sequence in the movie. I'm a sucker for dream sequences. Fellini's 8.5 has a terrific dream sequence, and this one has a really telling, informative dream sequence about Harry's childhood and about his state of mind.
Oh, right. But it's Harry's, as Mike you mentioned before. He's come. We're realizing that he's kind of having a breakdown, Harry here, and that something happened. Somebody got hurt. He blames himself. There's a lot of guilt.
A lot of Catholic guilt. He's starting to tear him up. Him giving confession in the church. So I also think that Abel Ferrara took a lot from this film in Bad Lieutenant. You can see how this anti-hero character that Harry Caul represents, and he this is at a time when anti-heroes were big in cinema. This is the early 70s, and Harry Caul with his mustache and nerdy glasses and cheap plastic raincoat, you can see also where Taxi Driver came along.
Oh, for sure. Isn't it interesting he has this transparent plastic raincoat that he always wears?
Yeah.
Despite the weather. It's interesting, right?
He always has
it. It's a see-through, transparent. It's interesting. It also is a connection I just made.
Yeah, I'm trying to... So the person I keep wanting to bring up who I've learned the most about this from reading what he said is Walter Murch, who is heavily responsible for this film being what it is. Right. He recut it enormously, and that line that was redone that we're talking about, the MacGuffin, that in a way kind of holds the movie together was his envisioning of what would be a through line. And all right, so I got a Walter Murch story I want to tell, and I'm going to try to do it briefly. But I've been waiting for someone to nominate a movie where I could bring it up, and this is probably the best one. But I became obsessed with Walter Murch in college because he had these great interviews on Radiolab, and he talked about the conversation in a lot of books. There's this great book with Michael Antogene, who wrote The English Patient, right?
Yeah.
And Murch edited that movie, and so they had these amazing interviews.
All right.
I went to school for classical philosophy and literature, and Murch is a huge liberal artist, and also infuses a lot of his editing with thoughts from that, and he has a whole Galilean harmony of the spheres thing. And so I was reading a lot of things about the coming up of zoetrope and how the conversation emerged from them wanting to use the equipment that they had around them. I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was initially the thought was to do a sound guy, but it was partly because of Murch's influence. And he is, by the way, he's a sound designer, and I believe they invented that term for him, sound designer. I might be wrong there, but he re-edited this movie and made it what it is. But my story, just real quick, is I was in Oregon, and I paid $4 and got his homophone number, and I called him.
Wait a minute, you paid $4?
Well, yeah, I can get you can get anybody's phone number for $4.
Oh, off the internet.
Off the internet.
You pay for? Oh, really?
Yeah, unlisted phone numbers.
You can?
Off the podcast, I'll tell you some other ones that I've gotten. But
it's not like you can really do anything with these, can you?
Well, you can just call them.
You can ring them up.
Yeah, but then they know you.
Well, I'm not trying to prank him. I wanted to meet him. So I called him up, got his son, told him that I want to talk to his dad about the harmony of the spheres. And long story short, a couple weeks later, I'm chilling with him in his house, 2 hours north of San Francisco, talking about movies and Galileo. And it was just the most amazing time. And he's the most interesting, craggy, Harry Caul-ish. I think this movie is heavily based on him. If what he's at 70 years old is anything to tell. But that's my story for now.
Oh, well, that's great. But Harry Caul is also based on Martin Kaiser, who's a professional surveillance guy and who ended up being hired and consulted on the I'm sorry, and who ended up
there's no phone ringing,
consulting on the film. That's FYI.
Sorry, who's Kaiser though?
He was a surveillance guy. I guess again he was
their
real Harry Caul.
It?
Well, he was the character was loosely based on this guy, I guess, who had some renown.
Do you guys know anything about the book Steppenwolf? I also hear that was an influence for Coppola in writing this. The Herman Hesse book.
I've read it. I don't see how he got from Steppenwolf to this, but I will say that my dad, Jerome Harmon, a.k.a. King Karnak of King Karnak, Barbie, and Cole fame, reminds me a lot of Harry Caul because he was one of these tinkerers who had all of these just things with dials and weird tape recorders, reel-to-reel tape recorders and stuff. And I think that aspect of his character, that he's such a tinkerer, it falls right in line with the saxophone playing, and he is a womanizer, even if he's not a very,
he's got an ego.
He's not a very good
As
one.
you referenced earlier, he likes his ego to be massaged, as well as other parts apparently. But you're right, he likes the attention.
He's a tinkerer in a way that reminds me of the generation of people that invented the atomic bomb and who had the rational plans that planned Vietnam. I think he's sort of a cipher for all of those men that were not themselves hurting anyone. They were just doing their little work and pushing buttons, and if other people did bad things with that information, that's
But
not
he's
their
also
fault.
one of the he's a member of this generation from post-World War
Yes.
and Korean War who's really overqualified for anything. He's not a guy who's going to go get a job as a librarian or in a bookstore or as a sanitation worker or a bus driver or any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's overqualified for everything. So he works for himself, and the seedy line of business that he finds himself in is listening to other people, and he evidently has gotten himself in a situation where he was directly responsible for
Somebody getting
hurt
or worse,
or murdered.
Yeah, and so when it comes to this situation, he all of a sudden his moral, his sense of obligation to protect. He starts to get concerned and grow feelings almost for, especially obviously the girl, Cindy Williams' character.
Well, this is
she sounds so.
This is the crux of the movie. Is that the only way that Harry can express his emotions is in this very abstract way. He has to have these layers of physical things between him and the girl that he cares about, because he's afraid that she's going to be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a fatherly instinct that comes out in him.
Oh, totally.
But he's not somebody who could ever. He sees her in a car at one point, and it's not as though he could walk up to her and say, "Excuse me,"
right,
and start
a
conversation.
The impulse was there, but I think you're right.
So in a way, the conversation of the film's title hangs over the movie because it never happens. You never get the conversation that you
conversation between
looking for.
him and those people, as opposed to the one.
Really, I think between he and the girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a little window into. I'm a video editor, and so it's a window into what happens when you hear these things and watch these people's faces for hours and hours and hours, and they run in your head. And it even reminds me too of the voyeurism of podcasting. I met someone last night whose podcast I listened to, and I'm meeting one right now as well. And there's a strange sense of familiarity that is misplaced, and this movie gets at that. It exists in a common realm, but then also in an extreme sense where has information about this woman that may be vital to her well-being, and it just gets something that's cool.
He's breaking his first rule, in this case. Harry Cole is he prides himself on many things. He has a lot of pride, but he prides himself on his distance, his ability to be professional, which means not getting emotionally involved with his clients, or, well, in this case, his clients' case, what have you, because actually he's being paid by the director, who is connected with Cindy Williams' character. They're either married or they're
right. He's some master of finance or corporate titan.
Yeah, he's a business titan. Right, exactly. Who hires Harry's gang to get the dirt. He believes his wife, Cindy Williams, is having an affair, which is, of course, is true. One thing I wanted to mention, we mentioned John Cazale, and I think I meant
Meryl Streep's husband.
Her. Were they married?
Yep.
Okay. He was what a great actor, and what a tragedy that he died so young of cancer. He made 5 films. He came from the theater, New York theater scene, as did Meryl Streep and Al Pacino and all that generation. And he was right there with those guys, and he did 5 movies, right? He did Godfather 1. He did The Conversation. He did Godfather 2. He did Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon.
And The
City
Deer
Limit.
Hunter.
Never heard of any of those.
I know, they're very obscure. But those 5 films, all 5 were nominated for Oscar Best Picture.
Wow.
And those are the only 5 movies he made.
And he was very beloved by everyone. And Al Pacino talks about learning a lot of his early acting techniques from John Cazale.
Yeah, it's amazing. Cazale, right? It's Cazale.
Yeah.
I knew it was.
Yeah. But what I think about it, what I took away from this movie, because I've seen it at different times in my life, and now to look at it and with where we are with surveillance, you think about people like Edward Snowden, and it's mind-boggling how much farther we've gone beyond what people used to consider their privacy, and how it's all just shot.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that we already there's a generation or two now of people that have grown up with, taking what goes on for granted. They don't think about a choice or, what other existence, there is. So when you grow up in this day and age where, somebody can get information and actually surveil you through your own phone.
And we're all, in a way, voyeurs of people, our friends on Facebook or Twitter, and what they will, what people reveal about themselves, and we're all on both sides of the equation now.
Yeah, well, we turned over a lot of that.
Have you guys seen Enemy of the State with Will Smith and Gene Hackman?
Sure.
97 or 98.
Yeah.
So in that movie, Gene Hackman plays a security specialist who works in like a metal cage in a warehouse.
Yeah.
It's the most bizarre,
bizarre.
clear reference to this, but it's updated it to now like an out-of-date version of what the NSA is up to. But it's funny because, it draws that straight line to computer culture. And I remember like satellites are like, Will Smith has to have a conversation keeping his head down because the satellites will read his face.
When that film came out, I wrote an article about it, why Hollywood wants you to love surveillance. And I have to dig that article up again. But what I perceived at the time was that was a piece of pro-surveillance propaganda coming out of Hollywood to normalize us to this idea that we're all sharing everything all the time.
Yeah,
Boo.
yeah. I think
we are right now.
I think there's a whole new generation of Harry Calls that have, they use their fingertips and keyboards. They're not sitting there with actual, transistors that they build themselves. But there's got to be people like him. I mean, I think Edward Snowden is someone who feels guilty about what they're doing and decides to blow the whistle on it.
Well, I have to say, it's been a lot of fun having Mr. Adam Schartoff on the program today. This has been I'm so glad that he brought up the conversation. I wish that Coppola's career had gone more in the direction that it seemed like it was going.
Yeah.
It really died off after.
You're not a Jack fan?
I give Coppola some credit for The Outsiders.
Yeah.
And
sure.
And Rumblefish.
Rumblefish to some degree, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right. And what was the one with the Frederick Forrest and was it Terry Gar? No, not Terry Gar. But there's that music. Was it a musical?
That's the. I think that's the.
Wasn't Terry Gar though?
I think that's the movie that killed his career.
It may have been, but it's good.
Yeah,
in a very bizarre way.
It's very He shot it
like
all. He shot Las Vegas.
Or,
an Affair of the Heart. I think he.
I don't think that's what it is.
He came back from shooting Apocalypse Now and never wanted to do anything outdoors again.
Makes sense.
He freaked out, and so he insisted on reinventing Las Vegas on a soundstage, which cost an arm and a leg, put him way over budget, destroyed Zoetrope Films, and the name of the movie
One from the Heart
is One from the Heart.
Just talk real quick about Coppola and surveillance. You know the documentary about Heart of Darkness, the documentary about the making?
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of the...
Made by his wife.
A lot of that voiceover...
Hickenlooper directed it, but his wife was like the...
I believe a lot of that voiceover comes from secret audio she recorded that she was going to use in a divorce case. So just to loop
Amazing.
him back around to surveillance.
I think the recent Blu-ray or release of Apocalypse Now, FYI, has
That's where I've seen it.
Heart of Darkness.
That's where I've seen it.
As a
on
bonus
the DVD feature.
Okay, yeah, it's an because I wanted to get just Heart of Darkness. I didn't care about. I have 3 copies of Apocalypse Now, I think. I just wanted to mention before we end, and thank you guys for inviting me on. I really had a good time. That I was trying to think about what it is about. What is this? That compels me to this film, which I've seen at least half a dozen times, maybe more over the years, and why I do. It's one of these films that I love so much, and I think it's it's of course Gene Hackman's performance at the core, because I think he was such a phenomenal actor, and especially in this particular period of time. And then it's the nuance, I miss movies. I really love movies like that because there's just so much nuance. There's so much attention given to detail, so much attention given to the actors and the story, the narrative, and it keeps giving. Every time you watch it, gives a little bit more. And you pick up, no matter how you may think you've seen it all, you've seen it and you've known the movie backward and forward, but you'll find more and more.
Well, it's so obvious that Coppola was influenced from Italian neorealism and Nouvelle Vague. There was a lot of European influence in his thinking in making this story.
And speaking of European influence, he did end up winning the Palme d'Or for that film, by the way, at Cannes in 1974.
Fantastic.
And which is no small feat. And of course, he also was won 3 Oscars. For Oscars, I think it won. Did it win Best Picture?
I don't know.
Best Sound, which is fitting.
Mr. Murch
got Best Sound and Original Screenplay.
That's the Coppola.
Can you just confirm the Best Picture? Maybe it was just nominated for that, but I think it won. I don't know why I think that.
74? I don't think that's.
Is that possible? What did it go against? It's like an expanded double version of your podcast today. That's what happens when you have a third co-host.
Yeah, we got to expand it for you. Of course, we got to make room.
The film was nominated for Best Picture, Best Screenplay, and Best Sound. And I'm looking to confirm the wins, and I'm not seeing a confirmation on the wins here.
Well, hopefully our social media at this point is blowing up with the answers to these questions. I know this is when I'd be tweeting at my favorite podcast.
I imagine it probably was a jagged pill.
It must have. Those must be wins, even though it says nominated. Those must be wins because it won 3 Oscars, right?
But it wasn't Best Picture. Just type in a little behind the scenes. Just type in Best Picture 1974.
Hello, Moffy. The Sting.
There you go.
Did The Sting win Best Picture?
That's what it is.
Totally. The Sting?
Yeah.
You remember the Oscars have always been stupid.
Right? That's kind of true. I suppose you're right. Yeah. Anyway, if you haven't seen The Conversation, by gosh, do yourself a favor though, and see this film as quickly as you can, and cherish it.
It's so small compared to other couple of movies. I think you're used to these enormous set pieces with filmed at crazy locations, but it's a shorter film. It's a smaller film, but it's so much fuller because of that, because the performances can breathe more.
And also he has that's the same kind of framing that Bertolucci used. He has that same eye for framing, so everything has this postmodern feel to it. And all of the exteriors, when they're outside of Embarcadero, they have this really cold, almost avant-garde look to them. It's like a Bauhaus thing. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very visually beautiful film.
It's a tough way to shoot San Francisco, is for it to be cold and austere, so that's an accomplishment.
Well, thank you all for listening. This has been Cole Smithey with my co-host Mike Lacy and our very special co-host this week, Mr. Adam Schartoff. signing off and reminding you to please turn your cell phones off when you are walking, driving, or watching a movie.